Why are we still here? Just to suffer. Every night, I can feel my leg and my arm, even my fingers. The body I've lost, the comrades I've lost, won't stop hurting. It's like they're all still there. You feel it too, don't you?
So two things that are unbearable to most people: Jordan Peterson and Bitcoin. And it's not surprised, both these things are usually liked by the same type of person. The person who listens to Joe Rogan podcasts, Lex Fridman podcasts, and really buys into the right-wing podcast grifting ecosystem, which actually platforms a lot of these Bitcoin bros. Now, with Bitcoin's massive increase in popularity, there has begun to be a shift between the true believers in Bitcoin, people like Jack Dorsey, who actually ideologically believe in Bitcoin as a way to solve most of the world's problems. I don't know how it's going to be achieved. And then you're getting the people who want to make a quick buck and cash in on it. Jordan Peterson seems to be a combination of both of these things. A guy who seemingly has bought into Bitcoin because of his right-wing grift at the moment and trying to stay relevant, but at the same time can somewhat back it up with an ideological justification. It's just one that does not really make any sense. So recently it was announced that Jordan Peterson was going to be a speaker at a Bitcoin conference in Miami, and this like massively split opinion in the Bitcoin community. But Jordan Peterson has been a figure that a lot of these Bitcoin bros have been promoting a lot, and someone they want to get on their side, probably because it's going to help their image, and get them people who are more susceptible to grifters like Jordan Peterson buy into the Bitcoin ecosystem. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at this Bitcoin conference and Jordan Peterson's speech during it. Then we're going to look at how Bitcoin outlets and the Bitcoin media promote Jordan Peterson. And then we're going to talk about why Jordan Peterson might appeal to people who like Bitcoin. And then maybe at the end, if we have time, I want to talk about the founding ideology of Bitcoin from its creator versus what Bitcoin is today. So all of that in the video coming up. Now, before we go any further, a lot of you have been bugging me about the chocolate oranges. I'm of course back in the UK now, and I've organized them so nicely. And I think that is 55k subscribers worth of chocolate oranges. For every 5k, we get a new chocolate orange. So I have two brand new ones for you today. And this one represents 70k subscribers. Sadly, we haven't got the lovely 75k subscriber orange yet, but help me get to that goal. Help me keep pushing to get that nice, lovely milestone. Also, if you want to follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter and on Instagram, please remember to like the video if you like it and comment if you want to support this video and support the success of the channel. Also consider supporting me on Patreon. The benefits of that are getting my Nintendo Switch friend code and getting access to the private patrons Discord server, and join our community on my subreddit, and check out my second channel, the Kavernacle Extra, where I post my stream archives, and I'm back to my streaming schedule. I'll be streaming 2 times a week going forward. So nearly 2 months ago at this point, Jordan Peterson was announced as a speaker for a Bitcoin conference. Now, I actually tweeted about this and I got like nearly 100k likes because of the reaction on the Bitcoin subreddit, and I thought we'd go back to it and we'd actually look at the post to see what people were saying a bit further, because I only posted a few screenshots. So here's me on the 18th of February. So Jordan Peterson has been confirmed as a speaker at the 2022 Bitcoin conference in Miami. Great, we've got Ted Cruz and Jordan Peterson. Next, let's get Alex Jones on our side. Really try and get Bitcoin adopted by the most controversial people possible. That'll help convince everyone. Exactly, the more crackpots we add, the more I think my family is right about crypto being a pump and dump. I'll eventually lose everything I have invested in. Are we the baddies? Yeah, my reaction to, if we get Ted Cruz and Tucker and this guy, maybe we're in the wrong camp. Well, you can't say these guys haven't become a bit more self-aware. What is his relevance to Bitcoin? He literally just understood Bitcoin a few weeks ago. Understood. I doubt he really understands it anymore than at the most superficial level. Why though? Guy learned about Bitcoin 5 minutes ago. He sees another opportunity to grift. This, make his own coin, push some sales, pitch disguised as philosophy, make millions. I've actually considered getting out of crypto because of this. Absolutely, a miss sub has turned into an astroturfing haven for this kind of stuff. It reeks of Russian trolls that popped up all over Reddit hyping Trump in 2016. I hate what this community has become and who associates with it. It's melting my brain as a Canadian when this sub started getting flooding with all sorts of Canadian political commentary. People say it's good for Bitcoin, but the convoy will be a flash in the pan and all of its participants will go back to being losers eventually, and all that will have been accomplished is a blemish on the use case argument for Bitcoin. Fellow Canadians, similar views. The association of Bitcoin and a convoy has alienated people that were previously getting curious about Bitcoin. It's quite disheartening. JP doesn't know anything about Bitcoin. I've watched a few of his interviews with Bitcoin gurus on YouTube. He was talking about how he's recently become interested in the Austrian School of Economics and all the rest of it. He speaks like he's an authority on subjects he's not really well qualified to speak publicly about. Climate change, economics, add politics and history to that as well. I found it impossible to listen to this guy talk when he went on Rogan the other day. Couldn't get a point across to save his life. We just don't know, man. There's too much we don't know was all he kept saying. So it is quite funny to see a little bit of self-awareness on the Bitcoin subreddit and maybe shedding a light that not everyone who has Bitcoin is like a totally terrible person or is just totally delusional and will support anything the right-wing grifting podcast ecosystem will support, from Russell Brand to Lex Fridman to Joe Rogan, because it seems like these people who buy into this stuff cannot have an opinion on their own. They just literally regurgitate what these people say, and this includes Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin Magazine is an outlet literally just dedicated to talking about Bitcoin. It has over like 1 million followers on Twitter. It's honestly a pretty disgusting account in that it always celebrates things that can help Bitcoin, whether or not the event is good or bad, always championing things like El Salvador, despite the bad things that Bitcoin, as legalized tender there, is doing. Now, like I said, there are true believers in Bitcoin and people who just want to make money or maybe buy into like the new ideology around Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin Magazine was seeking to assure people that their new hero, Jordan Peterson, will actually be relevant to the Bitcoin conference. So they wrote an article in March 28th, 2022, why Jordan Peterson will be a big hit at Bitcoin 2022. A highlight of the Miami conference, Peterson is causing excitement and a certain amount of surprise as he has expressed an interest in Bitcoin in the past, but has not been a regular on the Bitcoin front lines. Francis Pouliot, CEO and founder of Canada's largest non-custodial exchange, Bull Bitcoin, has been a fan of Peterson since 2018 and included his book 12 Rules for Life in his picks for the top 3 books of 2018. He told Bitcoin Magazine that he sees the orange pilling, which is a term they use about, getting people interested in Bitcoin, of Jordan Peterson as being perfectly representative of his new wave of Bitcoin adoption. A growing constituency of Canadians, including within the traditional business establishments, realize that banking and government institutions do not have their best interest at heart. As they look for solutions to mitigate inflation and political uncertainty, Bitcoin stands out as the only credible alternative to the fiat system. Given the gravity of this rapidly deteriorating situation, they are now willing to give Bitcoin a shot. He's also a big fan of free speech and is thrilled that Peterson, another free speech advocate, will be attending what's looking to be the largest Bitcoin event ever held, with an estimated 20,000 in attendance. I'm extremely stoked that Jordan Peterson is coming to Bitcoin 2022, he told us. Like many other Bitcoin professionals, Dr. Peterson's teachings about personal responsibility have had a profound positive effect on my life, and I consider them to be a perfect complement to the Bitcoin ethos of self-sovereignty. So I'm actually going to play you 2 clips of Jordan Peterson at this conference. One where he talks about capitalism being the best thing ever. Another where he talks about why he's a bit skeptical about Bitcoin, kind of. But I just want to give you a little insight into what the room felt like. And a guy called Ryan Broderick just tweeted some of his thoughts as Jordan Peterson was talking. So easily the biggest crowd reaction of the week for Jordan Peterson. Peterson says that Bitcoin feels like a fairy tale. The room is a little tense as Peterson talks about the irreversible damage Bitcoin could do to the global economic system. Can't tell if people are miffed he's not hyping it up, or if about 1,000 people just simultaneously realise what it is they're actually investing in. Oh no, now he's saying that leaving the gold standard wasn't catastrophic for society. Big faux pas in this room, JPB. Honestly, I'm a little surprised by how critical he's being of Bitcoin. Unbridled enthusiasm that your new system will only do good things you think it will is not wise. He seems to like the idea of Bitcoin as a competitive currency among many, not a universal standard. And then Peterson has been rambling about an app he's been developing Skyping with his son called Essay for easily 5 minutes now. It has nothing to do with crypto. And then just a really funny tweet I saw from Jessica Pin. Recalling that I found out about Jordan Peterson from a guy at a Bitcoin meetup 5 years ago and didn't recognize it as a giant red flag that it was. Just never date any man who is a fan of his, you have been warned. Also, never date any man who is into Bitcoin. Like I've been saying, there seems to be some sort of divide from people who've always been into Bitcoin and people who have got into Bitcoin because their favorite podcaster has been promoting it. And now they've been like indoctrinated into this cult about this libertarian currency, thinking that somehow it will free them from the flaws of the global banking system. Not that most people involved in Bitcoin and people who hold the most Bitcoin aren't also insanely wealthy people who both do very, very well in traditional markets with real world currency and do really well with Bitcoin. Not to mention just cryptocurrency in general is completely rife with scams, fraud, and helps loads of bad faith actors in the world launder their money, keep their cash and things like that, including criminal gangs. And as an anti-capitalist, as much as I hate the global Western dominated capitalist economic system, I don't think the answer to that system is this wildly fluctuating currency primarily pumped by millionaire and billionaire libertarians. But anyway, let's get to Jordan Peterson at the conference. I said we'd go through it. So the first clip I want to show you, and then just like maybe talk about a tiny bit, is Jordan Peterson talking about the ethics of capitalism, sort of like embodied by Bitcoin. And I love the way he talks about capitalism here. He basically frames it as like capitalist entrepreneurs don't really like exist to make loads of profit for themselves. They exist to provide a service to their peers. Even for someone who is a rabid anti-leftist, his take on capitalism seems extremely naive. Maybe he's just pandering to the crowd.
Starting a successful business enterprise is a profoundly ethical endeavor in the deepest sense, as far as I'm concerned. This is part of what makes me interested in Bitcoin too, because, you know, the cynical view, and many academics share this because they're jealous and they tend to sit on the left, both of those. They like to think of the capitalist enterprise as something that's fundamentally predicated on exploitation. And I think that's wrong on so many levels of analysis. That isn't what you do when you run a business, unless you're a parasite. And if you are, you're not going to last very long. If you're running a valid business in a free market system, you have to offer people who could choose otherwise freely something they value. Then you have to deliver it. Then it has to work reliably. And all of that's ethical. You promise to pay me, I promise to deliver, I do deliver, the thing I deliver works. If it doesn't work, I solve the problem. And if I don't do that, I'll develop a very bad reputation very, very rapidly, because there's nothing that destroys you quicker than unhappy customers who should be on the offensive, claiming like forthrightly that what you're doing is profoundly ethical in that you're providing free people, free customers, the option to make free choices about what they value. It's like, what's wrong with that?
Wow. Cheers to that.
Are easily set back on their heels ethically when confronted by those kinds of accusations. You know, this capitalist system is nothing but a system of exploitation. And what's the proof? Well, look at your profit, and all that profit is the exploitation of others. It's like, no, that's not true. First of all, you can't run your enterprise profitably unless you run it efficiently and intelligently. If you manage to run it profitably, then that's actually an indication of your care and conscientiousness and dutifulness and ethical orientation. And then if you have even 1/10 of a clue, you take that profit and you don't do something narrowly, selfishly, and pointlessly hedonistic with it. You invest it in your enterprise or in a parallel enterprise, and you try to make more goods and services available to more people. And
I mean, we all saw how badly Jordan Peterson's knowledge of Marxist arguments and Marxist arguments against capitalist economics is. But again, even for him, this is like bizarrely naive. Like, he doesn't even recognize that, of course, some profit is, of course, skimmed off you paying your workers a certain amount, because these people, these capitalist entrepreneurs, are not working at worker co-ops. They're not working so everyone can kind of do something they like and the profits go right back into the business to keep it going. Because in traditional capitalism, yes, some profit will go back into running the business. A lot of that profit will actually go right into the shareholders' pockets, right into the CEO's pockets, and it is primarily based on exploitation. Like Jordan Peterson, what do you think of the minimum wage in the US? What do you think of people being paid below $15, poverty wages, people having to have second jobs and stuff? Apparently to him, if you do these types of things as a businessman, you will be quickly found out and quickly hounded out because no one can stomach an unethical businessman. Again, how naive is this worldview? World economics just does not exist like that. Even if you are a staunch capitalist, a lot of capitalists, people who want to reform capitalism, of course I've seen them advocate for higher minimum wages and stuff like that. Maybe not for loads of worker co-ops, but with American capitalism specifically, the exploitation is just so obvious. The capitalist exploitation, think of the American system. In places like Texas, I think it's like a $2 minimum wage for servers, and most of your wages have to be subsidized by paying customers through their tips. And then you have things like health insurance and healthcare, which is tied to employment to keep you accepting the very, very low wages. The whole system is designed to keep you exploited and keep you down. And in America specifically, more than other Western countries, not that they all don't have this problem to some degree, is that if you leave your employment, you're basically screwed on multiple levels, and that includes access to some sort of health insurance. So he's saying capitalism is an ethical thing, and being profitable is ethical. Again, just completely does not understand how the capitalist system works, even in like a microcosm in like one country, for example. When we take it to global capitalism, people in Ethiopia making Tommy Hilfiger, getting paid the lowest wages in the world, cannot even afford the little apartments they rent with like 6 other people in one room. So they are permanently in debt. What are you going to say to the people who own Tommy Hilfiger about their profits? Is that ethical? Is that a very ethical pursuit? Is that something like us Marxists do not understand and it's really, really great? And Tommy Hilfiger, I've read about that. They've been exposed. So are we all going to stop buying those clothes? Again, Jordan Peterson does not live in reality. Could he be pandering to the crowd? I mean, perhaps, but then we're going to get into the next clip where he's not really pandering to the crowd because he's not telling them what a lot of these fanatics want to hear, is that Bitcoin should just be like the global standard. So this one's a bit longer. So he has warned the Bitcoin bros about what may happen with Bitcoin. Now he does both sides of it. He talks about like potential problems, but he does promote Bitcoin at the same time.
All the evidence, especially from the 20th century, suggests very strongly that as soon as you subordinate free market mechanisms to central planning ethical dogmas, you catastrophically affect the economic system in a detrimental manner, but you destabilize the entire society and tilt it towards totalitarianism. And we haven't learned that yet. Bitcoin, in principle, stops that from happening. It looks to me like if the Bitcoin theorists are correct, and Bitcoin does take priority over the other cryptocurrencies, that could take the monetary system permanently out of the hands of the political establishment, or the political system. So that's not humble, but it's also, as a social scientist, that also worries me because, you know, when you do something complex, you know, you have this notion about how the world might be a better place, and so you do something complex, like change the basis of the currency, and you think, well, here's a whole bunch of good things that'll happen because of that, and you might be right about that, but there's going to be an immense number of things that happen as well that you didn't predict at all, and you have zero idea and zero evidence about whether those things will be positive or negative. And so this experiment that you're all running, like, well, okay, we're going to take money out of the hands of politicians, but that also means out of our hands as voting agents, right? Because it's not just politicians, that's you guys too. We have no idea what would happen if money per se was actually decentralized. Let's say Bitcoin attains primacy. Is it irreversible? Like, is that permanent? And then you think, well, what if it's a bad idea and it's irreversible? The probability that you invent something extremely powerful and it only does the things you think it will do and all those things are good. It's like, no, that never happens.
Based Jordan Peterson, kind of, again, like he is like shilling for cryptocurrency. He is shilling for Bitcoin. Getting onto Jordan Peterson's criticism, it made me laugh quite a bit actually, because the guy said that in the room quite tense when he started saying this, because he's saying like, you know, Bitcoin could be very good as like an option as a currency, but it also probably have a lot of effects that you cannot plan for, and a lot of things that could either be positive but they could also be a negative, and you just cannot account for that stuff. And he's saying, you know, although he's involved in this stuff, you just don't know what the outcomes of Bitcoin could be. Again, very funny that he will go to shill Bitcoin all the time. Very funny he'll go to this Bitcoin conference. And a lot of people like Bitcoin Mag and loads of Bitcoin influencers are very, very excited. I read an article that Jordan Peterson was actually the most pessimistic speaker they had about Bitcoin. So again, that makes me laugh a lot. But I also think it shows that Jordan Peterson is not really in this for ideological reasons. I believe he's in this for more financial reasons. And while he can wrap up the justification for his support in his own ideology, which he talks about, like against totalitarianism and like central currency and central planning, that's all like a facet of totalitarianism, I really do not get the vibe he actually believes Bitcoin will save us all. Like a lot of Bitcoin bros legitimately think Bitcoin can solve all the political issues in the world right now. And further evidence for me that I don't believe Jordan Peterson actually likes Bitcoin based on Bitcoin ideology is other podcasts he's done. Here's another example of Lex Fridman talking to a Bitcoin bro, and they talk about like why Jordan Peterson likes it.
I'm trying to remember what he said about it. Basically, I think his support of Bitcoin is grounded in the kind of people who are opposing Bitcoin. So without understanding Bitcoin, he starts to like Bitcoin because of the people who are opposing it. You start to, I mean, that's partially why I am interested in Bitcoin. It's like all the people in power and all the kind of shady, fraudulent, non-genuine people who are dismissing Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Are making me think,
Well, I guess there are like some shady people who hate Bitcoin. I guess there's a lot of people involved with the government and conventional capitalists. There are also a lot of really, really shady people involved in cryptocurrency. And it's hilarious that Lex Fridman and Jordan Peterson like Bitcoin inherently because of the people against it. Because I guess like left-wing people think it's a scam. Traditional capitalists might also think it's a scam, but also don't want to lose their traditional source of revenue. But maybe through Jordan Peterson's ideology, you can see how Bitcoin bros can rationalize supporting his new Bitcoin grift and thinking he is like a natural ally for Bitcoin because of his like more anti-government stances over the years, particularly in Canada. So we're going to get back to Bitcoin Magazine, and I thought I'd share you this article, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And basically, it's someone who has adapted Jordan Peterson's Beyond Order and has applied it to Bitcoin ideology. So it's Jordan Peterson's new book on Bitcoin by Nelson Chen. And seriously, this stuff is so funny and shows you how these guys are trying to take Jordan Peterson's, I guess, ideologies about addiction and how that mainly is a you problem, nothing societal there, and his ideologies about, I guess, individualism and freedom, and apply it to Bitcoin. Maybe they're trying to make, I don't know, Jordan Peterson the Karl Marx of Bitcoin ideology. So a reimagining of Beyond Order by Jordan Peterson through the lens of Bitcoin. This is a one of a 12-part series in an imaginary Venn diagram of Bitcoin and Beyond Order. This writing would reflect the shared values contained in the center. All quotes are credited to Jordan Peterson. All reflections are inspired by Satoshi Nakamoto. Jordan Peterson quote, "You are something that is becoming. Everyone has that sense that there is more to them than they have yet allowed to be realized. That potential is often obscured by poor health, misfortune, and the general tragedies and mishaps of life." The article is saying, "We've all suffered financial setbacks, blindly following a friend's investment advice, unexpected financial burdens, or falling prey to Ponzi schemes." Yeah, because that's not what cryptocurrency is. "Repeated pain makes us jaded. The older we become, the more skeptical we become of anything sounding too good to be true, just like cryptocurrency. We are afraid of things that live beyond our comprehension. As negative financial experiences compound with age, we tend to retreat deeper into our comfort zone. The scars from pain and age merge into a fear, overriding our youthful sense of wonder and possibility. It's no wonder younger generations are enamored by Bitcoin, while older generations lean towards apprehension." So now getting very biblical, as Jordan Peterson, the totally not Christian conservative, likes to often talk about the Bible. So Jordan Peterson quote, Exodus emerge as a product of imagination that has been transformed by constant collective retelling and reworking into an ultimately meaningful form that applies politically, economically, historically, personally, and spiritually all at the same time. This is the very definition of literary depth. So contrast that with the next statement. If you've ever come across a Bitcoin maximalist, the individual exhibits the characteristics of a religious fanatic. Suspend your belief and imagine you witness a spiritual figure part the Pacific Ocean like Moses parting the Red Sea, allowing you to walk through and exit the other side wiser, richer, and freer. You emerge inspired by the knowledge that a better future has arrived. It would be hard for you to not obsessively retell and rework that story for the balance of your life, especially if your aim is to assist your fellow man. Okay, thank you for that. Whether you agree or not, the Bible is powerful because it exemplifies literary depth. Bitcoin is expressed across disciplines, technologically, politically, economically, historically, and artistically. Categorical breadth and substance depth are enduring characteristics of deeply meaningful stories. Bitcoin maximalists are fanatics because our existence has transformed our lives, and we are constantly retelling and reworking this ultimately meaningful story for the betterment of our peers. That is absolutely hilarious. Basically describing themselves as Bitcoin fanatics, comparing them to religious fanatics who might have saw Moses part the Red Sea or like Jesus Christ do miracles, and they've just got to tell everyone about it. No wonder these guys do not shut up. Bitcoin, in my mind, and cryptocurrency is an absolute cult, and thank you, this article, for describing it and admitting it in quite a lot of detail. So again, I do find that absolutely hilarious that they're trying to adapt Jordan Peterson's work and even adapt the Bible and compare themselves to religious fanatics willingly, because there is nothing more attractive to adopting a new libertarian currency than describing yourselves and your supporters as religious fanatics. But you can see how a lot of these people do like Jordan Peterson, even if a lot of what that guy was doing in the article, in my mind, was an absolutely massive stretch, and it just is really funny how he's trying to apply Jordan Peterson's message to Bitcoin in a really, really bizarre way. But so people like Jordan Peterson are just the latest of a series of grifters who maybe can make their own ideology compatible with modern Bitcoin ideology, but generally the Bitcoin ideology has far surpassed what the original creator believed the system should be, and now it's become this whole like religion, essentially, like they've described here and like I've read you. These people literally believe Bitcoin will end things like world hunger. I am not making that up. That is how delusional these people are. Anyway, do you have any friends who are into Bitcoin and are really insufferable? Any family members? Let me know in the comments. Follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter and Instagram. Maybe support me on Patreon to support my work. Also check out the subreddit in the description. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.